Oh boy, here we go. What's up, cool people? My name's Matt, aka That Random Christian Gamer. Welcome to tonight's live stream. So, tonight we have finishing up our Bible study on Nehemiah. We got the last couple of chapters of that to go through. And then just hanging out, chilling, chatting, and doing whatever other stuff might come up while I play some Gems of War. It is the first Friday of the month tomorrow. There's a new Mythic troop dropping in the game, and from what I've seen, it looks like it'll be a pretty good one. So I don't want to miss it, which means I want to get as many resources and things like that as I can in the game to get my best chances of getting that new troop. Basically, the more stuff you do in a given week in the game, you know, you get certain seals, as they're called, which can open certain chests that could potentially give you a troop of that level. Usually on the week that the new Mythic troop drops, that's the first Mythic that you're gonna get out of any of those kind of chests. So, anyway, yeah, just giving myself the best possible chance at what seems to be a good troop. Hello, Seth. Hope you are doing well. Now, as far as what exactly I'm going to end up doing in Gems of War, still to be determined. There's always the good old Underspire, in which we would probably at least, randomize which rooms I do in that. But there's also some other options to consider with various levels of randomness that I would potentially be okay with involving in those. But anyway, okay. So yeah, Bible study, Gems of War, that's what's coming up in tonight's stream. Let's go ahead, run the early set of Twitch ads, and then I will see all of you folks on that side of things after the ad break, and we'll get into Bible study. Meanwhile, YouTube folks and anybody who happens to be watching, because Twitch is weird sometimes about showing ad breaks, whether or not it happens for different people and for how long and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, the rest of you get to see as I, bring up the Bible study. Bunch of names again early on. This chapter seems a bit on the long side. Let's see how chapter 13 looks. Also a little, that's kind of on the upper end of middle length range, I would say. But anyway, yeah, feel free to let me know throughout, just whatever's on your mind. Just know if I'm in the middle of something, I might not answer you right away. Yeah, just quick little update about me and my week. It's been a week. It's work's just a little chaotic is the main thing. Actually, maybe more than just a little. But yeah, feel free to pop in the chat, ask questions, let me know what's going on. If it's not particularly relevant to the Bible study while I'm recording that, just know, especially in those cases, I might wrap up a thought or something first before I get to you. But yeah, that's pretty much all I think I gotta say before we hop on in to our Bible study here. So yeah, let's roll. All right, so we're at Nehemiah chapter 12. So long story short, after the kingdoms of God's people, Israel and Judah, after those got conquered, the people were exiled for a while. This one king of Persia, King Cyrus, was told by God to have the temple rebuilt in Jerusalem. And so King Cyrus sends God's people there and they work on rebuilding. At this point, the walls have been rebuilt. The temple was rebuilt for Jerusalem. It seems like the people have settled back in, and now it's kind of going through other things that they did to maybe reestablish themselves, get back into their normal flow. Also, looks like, based on this, might be getting into a little bit of history and what got them to this point. But anyway, so yeah, that's kind of events so far. Hey, Owl, hope you're doing all right. And if you're not, and you're up to it, we can feel free to chat a little bit about whatever is going on. But yeah, so Nehemiah chapter 12. Here we go, I guess. Here's the list of the priests and Levites who returned with Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, and Jeshua, the high priest. So these are the priests and Levites: Seraiah, Jeremiah, Ezra, Amariah, Maluk, Hattush, Shechaniah, Harim, Meremoth, Iddo, Ginnethon, Abijah, Miniamin, Moadiah, Bilgah, Shemaiah, Joiarib, Jedaiah, Salu, Amok, Hilkiah, and Jedaiah. These were the leaders of the priests and their associates in the days of Jeshua. Okay, pausing for a sec. First, because of chat. Second, I'll just say a little bit of something about the verses. All says, not okay, it's been a year. The date. Okay. One that was, yeah. You had mentioned it last week. I wasn't sure, maybe I was not remembering correctly, thinking that was closer to but I guess today was the actual day. It was just on your mind last week as well, probably because it was getting close to 1 year since. I myself am doing okay. Work is a bit, it's a bit chaotic, so various aspects around that can be a bit frustrating at times, but just trying to do my best and push through in the meantime. The changes to some extent were expected. The changes that we're kind of in the middle of that are causing the chaos. The chaos wasn't necessarily expected, but the changes were, so I'm just trying to, keep working my way through it and hopefully get to see things get better, once things have kind of gotten to a new rhythm. But, okay. So, I guess this first little list here was the priests. Well, it says these were the leaders of the priests and their associates, so these might not have even been all the priests, but they were definitely significant people to the temple operations at the very least. A lot of these notes are probably just going to be about names and different spellings and things like that. Now, Hebrew says Rehum there instead of Harim. But it's comparing that with, like, it essentially, if you look at other references in Ezra and Nehemiah, it makes more sense that they're saying Harim there, or maybe they just, maybe the translators just went with that spelling in all cases, which would be odd if the Hebrew consistently said Rehum in all those cases. I don't know. Ancient Hebrew, very different language. Anywho, note there, Ginnathon, as in some Hebrew manuscripts in Latin Vulgate, most Hebrew manuscripts read Ginnathoi. Okay, one letter difference, whatever. Moadiah, Hebrew reads me. Honestly, the J is probably pronounced more like a Y, like Miyamin or Meadiah. I mean, okay, the second one is definitely closer to the spelling they went with in this translation. But anyway, yeah, just different spellings of the people's names. All right, before I hop back in, Al says, today's been pretty great. Mom has kept people away. IRL that have almost zero. Had a chill day. Chill days are nice. Did get a new game. Okay. Game really helped me. Games, you know, being comforting is always a nice thing. Or finding something comforting to maybe get your mind off of something that would otherwise be sad or unpleasant can definitely be a good thing. Not that it's bad to, you know, like, feel sad for things for a while or anything like that, but, you know, in the midst of that, though, especially if you've been feeling that for a while, having something to take your mind off of it can be a nice reprieve. It makes me a little curious what game you got, but no need to disclose that if you're not inclined to share. Meanwhile, I'll move on with the Bible study. So, we're picking it up in verse 8 now. The Levites who returned with them being the priests listed up here, were Jeshua, Binnui, Kadmiel, Sherebiah, Judah, and Mattaniah, who with his associates was in charge of the songs of thanksgiving. Their associates, Bakbukiah and Unai, stood opposite them during the service. Jeshua the high priest was the father of Joachim. Joachim was the father of Eliashib. Eliashib the father of Joyada? I don't know. Anyway, Joyada was the father of Johanan. Johanan was the father of Jaddua. Pausing again because of chat and not wanting to ignore for too long. Ah, Pokemon Legends ZA. Okay. You know, I've heard, at least I think I've heard generally positive things about it. Not like it's perfect game, but I mean, for especially people around my age range, Pokemon is a, you know, familiar franchise, even a little nostalgic in some ways. And I guess really it wasn't really one of the major complaints about Legends Arceus, just like the graphics and such. So if that was the major complaint, personally, I'm not all that big of a, like, oh, graphics have to be great. I care more about story and gameplay and things like that. So I'm imagining, you know, the second go around, there's a decent chance for it to be even better. Okay, so you mentioned the Levites. Not a whole lot else to say about them. There's a note here at Johanan. Hebrew says Jonathan. Okay, so we've gone through the priests and Levites that returned from exile. Kind of just giving us a sense of who would be serving in the temple, primarily. Which you would almost think would fit better into Ezra than Nehemiah, considering the temple was more so the focal point in Ezra, but they were originally one combined writing. Or at least they were, like, most of the original manuscripts that people translate from Ezra and Nehemiah are together on the same, like, scroll or whatever it was. Okay. Al says, I've played everyone since Pokemon Yellow, so I'm not a Pokemon noob. I've just been out of the franchise for a while, so... I mean, I played the first couple of generations, but relative to the newer games, I would maybe be noob-ish. Saw a lot of hate on it. People saying the graphics sucked or it was too woke. It really put me off for a while, but I thought, you know what, I don't care. I'll play it, and if it's that bad, then I have played it myself and decided on my own it's bad. Really enjoying it. Bad graphics are only noticeable if you focus on and scrutinize everything. Only noticed really bad graphics twice, and I've been playing it for 6 hours. Yeah. Personally, I think a lot of the gaming community is a bit stuck up when it comes to graphics. But, yeah, I would definitely say don't necessarily let other people's opinion of a game or whatever form of media be the sole thing that dissuades you from something you would otherwise think you might enjoy, or at least try out to see for yourself if you would enjoy it. But yeah, played everyone since Pokemon Yellow, though. You've been more dedicated to Pokemon than me. Granted, I think that was one of those things that was kind of along the lines of what initially happened with the Kingdom Hearts series for me. It was like, well, okay, I had a PS2, so the stuff that released on PS2, fine, I got those, I kept up with it. But then after that, when it started going to handhelds and then other consoles I didn't have, then, you know, my playing of the series fell off until I got to Kingdom Hearts 3, and then I played the collection and all that, and yeah. It's definitely nice to have collections of games on newer consoles, but I don't think Nintendo has really done that so much with Pokemon. Would be a real nice move if they did that. Back in Gen 1, I decided I would be champion in every region in game. Still going strong. Yeah? Tip of the cap to you. I don't know. Good on you for keeping up with it, I guess. Okay. So, we've talked about priests and Levites. Let's see what else we get here. Although the whole chapter might in some way be mostly about the priests and Levites. Alright, verse 12. Now when Joachim was high priest, the family leaders of the priests were as follows. Meraiah was the leader of the family of Seraiah. Hananiah was the leader of the family of Jeremiah. Meshullam was the leader of the family of Ezra. Jehohanan was the leader of the family of Amariah. Jonathan, the leader of the family of Maluk. Joseph for the family of Shechaniah. Adnah for the family of Harim. Helkai for the family of Meremoth, Zechariah for the family of Iddo, Meshullam for the family of Ginnethon. I'm abbreviating this slightly in case you couldn't tell, because it's a bit repetitive otherwise. Zechariah was the leader of the family of Abiyah. There was also a leader of the family of Miniamin, but it doesn't say who. Piltai for the family of Moadiah, Shemua for the family of Bilgah, Jehonathan for the family of Shemaiah, Mattanai for the family of Joyarib, Uzai for the family of Jediah, Kalai for the family of Salu, Eber for the family of Amok, Hashabiah for the family of Hilkiah, and Nethanel for the family of Jedaiah. Record of the Levite families was kept during the years when Eliashib, Joiada, Johanan, and Jaddua served as high priest. Another record of the priests was kept during the reign of Darius the Persian. A record of the heads of the Levite families was kept in the book of history down to the days of Johanan, the grandson of Eliashib. Yeah, so this really is a lot of just stuff about the priests and Levites. I'm actually going to wrap up this section because it's a lot of just names and history and stuff. So, continuing in verse 24, these were the family leaders of the Levites: Hashabiah, Sherebiah, Jeshua, Binuai, Kadmiel, and other associates who stood opposite them during the ceremonies of praise and thanksgiving, one section responding to the other as commanded by David, the man of God. This included Mattaniah, Bakbukiah, and Obadiah. Meshullam, Talmon, and Akub were the gatekeepers in charge of the storerooms at the gates. These all served in the days of Joachim, son of Jeshua, son of Jehozadak, and in the days of Nehemiah, the governor, and of Ezra, the priest and scribe. Okay. Wraps up that section. Before I get into comments, let me check in with the chat. So, Legends ZA is more focused on battling, with collecting Pokemon being secondary, which has always been more my style. Meaning the focus on battling is more your style, or the collecting Pokemon? I'm guessing you mean the former, considering you said you're mostly enjoying the game. Yeah, I mean, I haven't played Pokemon games for multiple generations now, so I can't say. I mean, yeah, the earlier games definitely, there was sort of a push in like advertising and such, especially with the phrase, gotta catch them all and all that, to focus on catching all the Pokemon. And yeah, like, that was definitely a thing that a lot of people did, myself included, at least with Gen 1, maybe 2 as well. But I still think there was enough of a balance where it didn't feel like the game, well, in a way it did feel like the game was just a little bit incomplete if you didn't do that. But at the same time, it like, I'm not sure I ever did actually catch all the Pokemon in Gen 2, but I don't remember feeling like totally disappointed or like I left the game incomplete. Always preferred the battling aspect. Didn't go out of my way to catch Pokemon. Yeah. But okay, so yeah, I think, the focus more so being on battling is, and I think I saw, well, I guess Legends Arceus kind of did this too, where The battles are also more like actually just on a field, and you can move around some, and like there's a slight extra layer of strategy to it there. Legends Arceus got a bad rap because it was all Pokedex focused. Battling was unnecessarily clunky. Okay, so it seems like the combat, based on what you're saying, it seems like the combat got refined quite a bit in ZA compared to Legends Arceus. Which, yeah, I could... Like, if the battling was a problem, I could see that being a serious complaint. It's kind of a big deal. Alright. So, this section that we just read, again, kind of more history stuff. Not that it's unimportant. It's just that for us, like, I think this would have been a lot more important for whoever the original readers were to, like, kind of set the moment in context and dig a little more into the significance of it and some of the connecting points to, you know, previous generations and things that happened. More notes, probably mostly about names. Note here at Maluk, that comes from the Greek version. Hebrew reads Malukai. Okay. Shechaniah, it says, comes from many Hebrew manuscripts and some Greek. In the Syriac, most Hebrew manuscripts read Shabaniah. Shabaniah. So the difference is a B instead of a C. Merimoth, as in some Greek manuscripts, Hebrew reads Merioth. It's also a lead. Hebrew lacks the name of this family leader from the family of Miniamin. Guess this translation lacks it too. I wonder if there are other manuscripts that include a name, but the translators found it questionable, possibly. Like someone tried to figure it out later and add it in. I don't know. In any case, note there, Salu, Hebrew says Salai. Note there, Darius the Persian is probably Darius the Second, who reigned 423 to 404 BC, or possibly Darius the Third, who reigned 336 to 331 BC. I guess, given the number of people serving as high priest in the meantime, yeah, I mean, realistically, either of those is a possibility. I'm forgetting if it was Darius the First or the Second who was the one that kind of okayed the rebuilding of things after there was some discussion and debate around that. You know, like whether or not God's people even had permission to rebuild like that. Anyway, note here at the grandson of Eliashib, Hebrew just says descendant. Grandson is definitely a descendant, but that's a much more general term. Could be son, grandson, great-grandson, so on and so forth. Or even slight offshoots thereof. Like, great nephew or something to that effect. Anyway, note there, Binuai, hold up. Hebrew says son of, i.e. Ben. which should probably be read here as the proper name Binui. Compare Ezra 3:9 and the note there. So, how else would it read? Like, son of Cadmiel? Or, like, that... I'm a little unclear on that, but oh well. Not a major thing for me to really know at this particular moment, I would say. Alright, another note at Jehozadak there. Hebrew just says Jozadak without the, EH. But variant spelling. Similar enough. Okay, back to chat for a sec. Even doing battle moves in ZA is better. Rather than just picking commands, you mash buttons with the attacks labeled. Makes me feel more like my Pokemon and me are more in sync because I'm potentially controlling us both. Yeah, I'm not sure, like, I think I saw some bits of gameplay and I didn't realize there was necessarily any, like, mashing buttons involved in that, but that's... Still, I mean, it looked pretty... The combat looked fairly fluid, and, like, there was definitely... It was definitely very active, but also in that very controllable. All right. Moving along to verse 27. There's still quite a bit to go. All right. For the dedication of the new wall of Jerusalem, the Levites throughout the land were asked to come to Jerusalem to assist in the ceremonies. They were to take part in the joyous occasion with their songs of thanksgiving and with the music of cymbals, harps, and lyres. The singers were brought together from the region around Jerusalem and from the villages of the Netophathites. They also came from Beth Gilgal and the They also came from Beth Gilgal and the rural areas near Geba and Asmaveth, for the singers had built their own settlements around Jerusalem. The priests and Levites first purified themselves, then they purified the people, the gates, and the walls. I, probably being Nehemiah, I led the leaders of Judah to the top of the wall and organized 2 large choirs to give thanks. One of the choirs proceeded southward along the top of the wall to the dung gate. Hoshaiah and half the leaders of Judah followed them, along with Azariah, Ezra, Meshullam, Judah, Benjamin, Shemaiah, and Jeremiah. Then came some priests who played trumpets, including Zechariah, son of Jonathan, son of Shemaiah, son of Mattaniah, son of Micaiah, son of Zachar, a descendant of Asaph. And Zechariah's colleagues were Shemaiah, Azarel, Gilalai, Mai, Nethanel, Judah, and Hanani. They used the musical instruments prescribed by David, the man of God. Ezra the scribe led this procession. At the fountain gate, they went straight up the steps on the ascent of the city wall toward the city of David. They passed the house of David and then proceeded to the water gate on the east. Alright. Pausing there for a bit. So, it seems like maybe part of the reason the chapter leading up to this point was talking about the priests and Levites and their history and who all was involved in things at that moment was because of this. Since they were all asked to come to this dedication ceremony thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty big deal. Your old capital city of your, people's homeland, country, kingdom, territory, region, whatever phase of its existence they might be considering. But yeah, the walls in the temple were both rebuilt, and like they essentially had pretty officially reestablished themselves back in their homeland. So, we got musicians coming in, singers, priests and Levites probably to, perform various offerings or other rituals. Also, purified themselves and the people. Like, priests and Levites, I think, were the only ones approved to purify things in such a way. So this first choir, it says proceeded southward. Hebrew just says to the right. Which, sorry. I can't say offhand I remember the, layout of the city and, where the main entrance or gathering places or whatever would have been. But I'm going to trust the translators to say that to the right was probably southward. So it mentions this was a choir, but also some instruments involved, or at least trumpets on that side. And I gotta imagine, it mentioned 2 choirs, I imagine the other one might head the opposite way to the north. But we'll see as we continue with verse 38. The second choir, giving thanks, went northward, around the other way to meet them. I followed them together with the other half of the people along the top wall, past the tower of the ovens to the broad wall, then past the Ephraim gate to the old city gate, past the fish gate and the tower of Hananel, and on to the tower of the 100. Then we continued on to the sheep gate and stopped at the guard gate. The 2 choirs that were giving thanks then proceeded to the temple of God, where they took their places. So did I, together with the group of leaders who were with me. We went together with the trumpet-playing priests, Eliakim, Maaseiah, Miniamin, Micaiah, Elioenai, Zechariah, and Hananiah, and the singers, Maaseiah, Shemaiah, Eleazar, Uzai, Jehohanan, Malchijah, Elam, and Ezer. They played and sang loudly under the direction of Jezrahiah, the choir director. Many sacrifices were offered on that joyous day, for God had given the people cause for great joy. The women and children also participated in the celebration, and the joy of the people of Jerusalem could be heard far away. So yes, there were sacrifices and stuff to mark the occasion. But also, so it seems like they just kind of marched along the wall that had been rebuilt and that they were dedicating. Seems like they marched around / along the wall and then went to the temple for, the actual, main celebration and all that. Sorry. Okay, so notes here. Yeah, so the Hebrew says to the left where it's translated as northward here. Point being, it's like half the people went one way, half the people went the other, and then they met up at the opposite end, and then kind of as one went to the temple. Note there at the city gates, could say the Mishnah gate or the Jashana gate. Possibly different names for the same gate at different times. But either way, doesn't necessarily change the overall picture of what's going on. And I personally find most of the time I'm more of an overall picture kind of reader and studier. And maybe even thinker as a whole. So they played and sang loudly for the celebration, made sacrifices. It says the women and children also participated in the celebration. So, like, normally the men being kind of the leaders in their society were the ones really actually, you know, at least doing any official part of the celebration. But I guess in this case, maybe, you know, they had the women and children sort of join in the singing or whatever other things were going on. But apparently it was enough people making a loud enough noise that it could be heard far away. How far? I don't know. But I would assume outside of the city, like well enough outside the city that, you know, other people who had nothing to do with the event would have at least heard some rumblings. Okay, one last section left in this chapter, starting with verse 44. On that day, men were appointed to be in charge of the storerooms for the offerings, the first part of the harvest, and the tithes. They were responsible to collect from the fields outside the towns the portions required by the law for the priests and Levites. For all the people of Judah took joy in the priests and Levites and their work. They performed the service of their God and the service of purification as commanded by David and his son Solomon, and so did the singers and the gatekeepers. The custom of having choir directors to lead the choirs in hymns of praise and thanksgiving to God began long ago in the days of David and Asaph. So now, in the days of Zerubbabel and of Nehemiah, all Israel brought a daily supply of food for the singers, the gatekeepers, and the Levites. The Levites in turn gave a portion of what they received to the priests, the descendants of Aaron. And that is how the priests and Levites, and pretty much anybody involved with serving in the temple, got their food, got their portions of things to make it through the day or however long they were serving. Possibly even more if, you know, like, especially in the case of the priests, maybe even the entirety of the Levites as well. That was, I think, possibly just how they got through the year, every year. People gave gifts to the temple. Those gifts, a lot of it went to the priests and Levites. Or maybe a lot of those went directly to the Levites, who then gave part of their gifts, or whatever you want to call them, to the priests. Also, the priests and maybe the Levites got particular portions of the offerings in most cases where there were offerings. But, yeah. So I guess they had settled back in enough to start getting back to the regular tithes and things like that, people could actually consistently have their own stuff with enough supply to, give some of it away to the priests and Levites for their service. So, people were then assigned to take care of those particular gifts and offerings and things like that, and the distribution thereof, I'd imagine, and the storing thereof. But anyway, okay. Think those are about all the thoughts that I've got on this chapter. The wall has been dedicated. They've started kind of getting back into the swing of things. At least pretty, in a lot of ways, similar to how they were before being conquered. We got one more chapter of Nehemiah left, so we'll see what happens in that one. But that's all I got for chapter 12. And that went on for quite a while. Of course, it was kind of broken up by conversation with chat, Owl in particular. Not saying that's a problem, just an observation. And it does make me wonder about ad break timing. I could just push the next ad break really early, so as not to have anyone currently watching miss any of the Bible study. Because I'd have to kind of rush it to wrap that up before the next ad break would kick in. So, before it would kick in on its own. So you know what? Let's do that. Twitch folks, I'll see you in a little bit. Okay. Meanwhile, might just move myself around a little bit here. Granted, I have been on my feet all day, but also don't necessarily want to just be totally lazy and with bad posture the whole time. It felt like I was kind of hunched over a little bit while reading all that. Not that leaning back like this is necessarily much better posture either. But, yeah, okay. One last chapter left of Nehemiah, which we get about 30 seconds left on the ad break. And then I'll get into that. Random note about things for me. Seems like a few people at work and also my parents have been sick to some extent over the past week. Maybe even week and a half for some of the people at work. Yeah, so that was fun. Fortunately, I don't seem to have caught anything from any of them. Definitely have not been any notably kind of sick myself in the past week or so. See, I feel like I'm not necessarily framed up real well when I do that. Which, for these videos, I maybe care slightly more about that than in the gaming stuff. Okay, anyway. Let's get back to the Bible study. Okay. We are at Nehemiah chapter 13, the final chapter in the book of Nehemiah. So the wall was built in the temple. Now they've kind of dedicated all that and celebrated those accomplishments. And yeah, otherwise, God's people have just kind of been settling back in, especially in and around Jerusalem. I'm pretty sure there were some others that settled a bit, a little bit away from Jerusalem, but that was kind of the hub of their return from exile. So, yeah, if you want a little more context, especially regarding the whole book of Nehemiah, feel free to go back and watch what I recorded about the previous chapter. But yeah, there's, I think, what's relevant for this chapter. So here we go. Nehemiah chapter 13. On that same day, I guess being the same day that they dedicated the rebuilt wall, on that same day, as the book of Moses was being read to the people, the passage was found that said no Ammonite or Moabite should ever be permitted to enter the assembly of God. For they had not provided the Israelites with food and water in the wilderness. Instead, they hired Balaam to curse them, though our God turned the curse into a blessing. When this passage of the law was read, all those of foreign descent were immediately excluded from the assembly. Yeah. Betcha that was a little awkward. Assuming there were any significant number of people who fell into that category. But, I mean, that is what was written, so if they were really committing themselves to following God, like it seemed they were a few chapters ago, that I guess was the proper thing to do. It's not like they were necessarily kicking those people out of Jerusalem or, their land as a whole that they were settling back into. Just couldn't. I mean, it says enter the assembly of God. So I assume at the very least that means Ammonites and Moabites weren't supposed to be on the temple grounds and or possibly involved in any significant festivals and things like that or other ceremonies. But yeah, basically, because those people groups were unkind to the Israelites as they wandered through the wilderness between leaving Egypt and settling in the Promised Land initially, yeah, that's why those people were excluded. Note there, it just says see Deuteronomy 23, 3-6, so there's your backstory for why the Ammonites, well, or that might, either that is when those people didn't give food and water to the Israelites wandering through the wilderness, or that's when it mentions, or that's where the passage that said no Ammonites or Moabites should enter the assembly of God is found. It's one of those two things. It's quite possible the actual moment of the Ammonites and Moabites treating the wandering Israelites that way was in Exodus, but don't quote me on that. I'm not totally sure. Anyway, enough about all that. So they read a passage saying at least certain people groups should be excluded, so the crowd got a little lighter at that moment. A little thinner, you might say. But probably not like a massive portion of them. Anyway, on to verse 4. Before this had happened, Eliashib the priest, who had been appointed as supervisor of the storerooms of the temple of our God, and who was also a relative of Tobiah, had converted a large storage room and placed it at Tobiah's disposal. The room had previously been used for storing the grain offerings, the frankincense, various articles for the temple, and the tithes of grain, new wine, and olive oil, which were prescribed for the Levites, the singers, and the gatekeepers, as well as the offerings for the priests. I was not in Jerusalem at that time, for I had returned to King Artaxerxes of Babylon in the 32nd year of his reign, though I later asked his permission to return. When I arrived back in Jerusalem, I learned about Eliashib's evil deed in providing Tobiah with a room in the courtyards of the temple of God. I became very upset and threw all of Tobiah's belongings out of the room. Then I demanded that the rooms be purified, and I brought back the articles for God's temple, the grain offerings, and the frankincense. Okay, now, Tobiah, I believe, was one of the people that had, like, sort of opposed the rebuilding of things in Jerusalem. But, if I remember right, Tobiah did also have some sort of familial connection, even if somewhat distant, to people that were pretty high on the totem pole of the Israelites, let's say. So, in case you're wondering why... first of all, in case you're wondering who Tobiah was, why storing any of his stuff was a problem, and then why somebody would have willingly done that if he was so disliked, that there's kind of my brief explanation of why I think all of that was the way that it was. So, it is noted in here that Nehemiah did, in fact, return to King Artaxerxes, at least briefly. King Artaxerxes of Persia is here identified as the king of Babylon because Persia had conquered the Babylonian Empire. 32nd year of Artaxerxes was 433 BC. Was that also the same year it mentioned in the last chapter that the one King Darius the Second reigned? Or maybe that was 423. Either way. But yeah. Nehemiah went back to the king and later asked permission to return to Jerusalem. So, this stuff that Eliashib did with storing supplies for Tobiah happened while he was away, apparently. And then he comes back and did not like that at all. Basically tossed everything out of there and then put the things back in that were actually supposed to be there. The things that weren't Tobiah's, essentially. Okay, so moving along to verse 10 then. I also discovered that the Levites had not been given their prescribed portions of food, so they and the singers who were to conduct the worship services had all returned to work their fields. I immediately confronted the leaders and demanded, "Why has the temple of God been neglected?" Then I called all the Levites back again and restored them to their proper duties. And once more, all the people of Judah began bringing their tithes of grain, new wine, and olive oil to the temple storerooms. I assigned supervisors for the storerooms, Shelemiah the priest, Zadok the scribe, and Pedaiah, one of the Levites. And I appointed Hanan, son of Zachar, and grandson of Mattaniah, as their assistant. These men had an excellent reputation, and it was their job to make honest distributions to their fellow Levites. Remember this good deed, O my God, and do not forget all that I have faithfully done for the temple of my God and its services. So, as seems to be typical with God's people throughout the Bible, they have a good, strong leader who leads them well. Things get either set up or returned to how they're supposed to be, at least to an extent. People, dedicate themselves to God, and in this case, they had started giving the tithes and things like that to the temple so the priests and Levites could have their portions and, get by while doing their temple duties. But then the great leader, in this case Nehemiah, left one way or another. Now, historically, a lot of times it was, changing of leaders that caused these things to happen, namely one leader dying and another one taking their place that didn't take these things as seriously, so things fall off the rails to some extent. And yeah. So Nehemiah, the one who sort of led the charge in rebuilding things and in a way, getting the people back towards following God's laws, at least closer to how they should have been. Ezra had a big hand in that too, but Nehemiah was likewise a big part of that. But Nehemiah leaves because it was established that he would return to King Artaxerxes after a while. But then he comes back to Jerusalem and is like, what are y'all doing? And so he takes it upon himself to, lead the people once more and set things right. In this particular instance, what was being put in the storerooms as well as the tithes. Okay. Moving on to verse 15. We're about halfway through the chapter, it seems. Verse-wise, anyway. Anywho. In those days, I saw men of Judah treading out their wine presses on the Sabbath. They were also bringing in grain, loading it on donkeys, and bringing their wine, grapes, figs, and all sorts of produce to Jerusalem to sell on the Sabbath. So I rebuked them for selling their produce on that day. Some men from Tyre who lived in Jerusalem were bringing in fish and all kinds of merchandise. They were selling it on the Sabbath to the people of Judah, and in Jerusalem at that. So I confronted the nobles of Judah. Why are you profaning the Sabbath in this evil way? I asked. Wasn't it just this sort of thing that your ancestors did that caused our God to bring all this trouble upon us and our city? Now you are bringing even more wrath upon Israel by permitting the Sabbath to be desecrated in this way. Then I commanded that the gates of Jerusalem should be shut as darkness fell every Friday evening, not to be opened until the Sabbath ended. I sent some of my own servants to guard the gates so that no merchandise could be brought in on the Sabbath day. Merchants and tradesmen with a variety of wares camped outside Jerusalem once or twice. But I spoke sharply to them and said, "What are you doing out here, camping around the wall? If you do this again, I will arrest you." And that was the last time they came on the Sabbath. Then I commanded the Levites to purify themselves and to guard the gates in order to preserve the holiness of the Sabbath. Remember this good deed also, O my God. Have compassion on me according to your great and unfailing love. Alright, so not only were the tithes not being given and the storerooms being misused, but the Sabbath day was not being observed. And for the record, yes, it was the Jewish Sabbath was essentially like Friday evening after the sun set through Saturday evening at the same time. Not on Sundays like most Christians go to church and observe an equivalent of the Sabbath. But yeah, like, these people were doing all sorts of work and selling / trading things on the Sabbath. It was supposed to be a day of rest, not of more work and business. So Nehemiah confronts leaders in this and once again leads the effort to fix it. You know, in some ways, I feel like some of my... I feel like I connect with Nehemiah and his need to fix things because of other people messing it up. Just in my work, I kind of feel a connection that way. A lot of my job is to be meticulously detailed with various aspects of inventory usage and tracking and, you know, dispersing various components to the one assembly team. But, you know, keeping track of those components and, you know, how they come in or if they come in and, you know, where they're stored and things like that. And just like sometimes things with inventory get off track or it's just other things seem to get messed up in some way or another, mostly inventory related. That, like, I almost wonder if Nehemiah had that sort of, like, really, people, how do you keep messing this stuff up sort of attitude. But granted, in his situation, it was various different things. At my work, it's mostly the same kind of thing happening over and over again, just maybe with different parts. So, yeah, anyway. So he talks to the nobles, the gatekeepers, anybody who was involved in this, you know, working and trading that was going on the Sabbath, and pretty much shuts it down. Like, the gates even were just shut that entire, you know, day's cycle. Now there is a note there, actually. Hebrew says on the day before the Sabbath, rather than Friday evening. But, yeah, so again, it was like after the sunset on the day before the Sabbath, which the traditional Sabbath was mostly Saturday. But I think traditionally the Israelites counted days more as like the evening being the start of the day rather than the morning. Possibly going all the way back to Genesis where it says, and there was evening and there was morning, such and such day. So, yeah. So while we today might think of Saturday, being the, one midnight to another kind of situation, I guess in a way it's not that far off. It's just they kind of went more so by sunset than a certain hour on a clock, because timekeeping devices, I imagine, were not as consistent or sophisticated back in those days. So anyway, Nehemiah puts a stop to all this working and trading and selling of things on the Sabbath. And then we get to verse 23. About the same time, I realized that some of the men of Judah had married women from Ashdod, Ammon, and Moab. Ammon and Moab, they were supposed to be excluded from the ceremonies and meetings in the temple and things like that. Anyway, furthermore, half their children spoke the language of Ashdod or of some other people and could not speak the language of Judah at all. So I confronted them and called down curses on them. I beat some of them and pulled out their hair. Harsh, but anyway. I made them swear in the name of God that they would not let their children intermarry with the pagan people of the land. Wasn't this exactly what led King Solomon of Israel into sin? I demanded. There was no king from any nation who could compare to him, and God loved him and made him king over all Israel. But even he was led into sin by his foreign wives. How could you even think of committing this sinful deed and acting unfaithfully toward God by marrying foreign women? One of the sons of Joiada, son of Eliashib, the high priest, had married a daughter of Sanballat the Horonite, so I banished him from my presence. Remember them, O my God, for they have defiled the priesthood and the solemn vows of the priests and Levites. So I purged out everything foreign and assigned tasks to the priests and Levites, making certain that each knew his work. I also made sure that the supply of wood for the altar and the first portions of the harvest were brought at the proper times. Remember this in my favor, O my God. The little intermittent, seeking God in the midst of his writing. It's almost like he wanted to write this to God. Because otherwise it sounds a little bit like he's kind of puffing himself up. In any case. So, yeah, as if it weren't bad enough that the tithes weren't being collected and distributed properly, and that the Sabbath was not being observed. But on top of that, there were some men marrying foreign women. They had just, after Nehemiah previously helped bring the people back from their exile and build the wall and all that kind of stuff, he had led them in an effort to remove their foreign wives and children of said foreign wives from the picture. They were specifically commanded not to intermarry with the people around them because of situations like what happened with Solomon, where he started worshiping other gods. And that was the main point of not intermarrying, so that the people of God would not be led astray to worship other gods and follow other belief systems. So, yeah. Humans do as humans. Yeah. And in a lot of cases, I used this quote. I don't know if it's really an officially attributed quote to anyone in particular, but this popular phrase, I used this earlier today in a totally different context and conversation, but like, I'll say it again here. Never underestimate the power of stupid. People are gonna do stupid things if there's latitude to do so. So yeah, Nehemiah finds out about the men marrying foreign wives, and again, he's all just kind of like, what are you doing? Stop it. Smack, smack. I would say figuratively, but no, it literally says that he, like, beat some of them. Yeah. I beat some of them and pulled out their hair. Like, I think Nehemiah at this point, after the whole issue with the tithes and with the Sabbath, and now this, was just sick of all the people's crap. And kind of rightfully so. And of course, it wasn't even just the regular dudes that married foreign wives. No. There was a priest. Well, I mean, a son of a priest, at least. That was... Yeah. At least the son of a high priest that had married a daughter not just of some random foreigner. No. Remember how I mentioned Tobiah being somebody who was against the whole rebuild situation? Sanballat was another one of those people. They were literally, like, developing deep relationships with, to be blunt, enemies. People who opposed them and their efforts. So, like, come on, people. But again, there were probably connections there, like with Tobiah. So, I mean, it's not like... I assume it wasn't just some random thing that happened for no apparent reason, and, like, people were just completely oblivious to what Tobiah and Sanballat did to try and, work against them in rebuilding. But, like, the people still had influence for whatever reasons. The people that were against the rebuild still had influence in Judah and specifically Jerusalem, I guess. But yeah, so this chapter here seems to be just a whole bunch of like, all right, here's a bunch of stuff that got messed up after I left for a little bit, and then I fixed it after I came back. Yeah, so not exactly the greatest look for God's people as we wrap up the book of Nehemiah. Okay. Oh, man. Alright, so that does it for the Bible study portion of things. Probably went on a little bit longer than normal, but you know what? More Bible study isn't a bad thing. Makes me extra glad I stuck with playing Gems of War for the other activity tonight. Sorry, I'm trying to move the microphone stand and stuff and shift over to the... Now I have to pick verses again. Yes, I will sometime soon, but I don't have to do it right this moment. because it's actually not going to be for another week or so before I would have the summary video thing come out. Should also be happy you didn't leave the 3 chapters till now. Yeah, that... Yeah, that worked out well, and I came across a reason to include 3 chapters before, and that, yeah. Because I think a 3rd chapter tonight would have just taken up the entire now normal 2-hour length stream, whereas before I was cutting it a bit shorter intentionally because of other things I had going on. Anyway. Okay, let me... I was meant to post in a chat a bunch of times, was so into my game I thought comments and didn't post them. I mean... You just did whatever the opposite of thinking out loud is. Like, sometimes people will say what they're thinking without even realizing it. Alright. Here we go. Pulling up Gems of War here. Cutting out my background music because the game has its own. And I'm noticing I've got my game capture volume turned up quite a bit. Probably from playing Borderlands 4 last week. I mean, we could do about an hour of this. It just won't necessarily coincide with the ad break timing. Alrighty, well... It is chill and chat and play a game time. Let's put it that way. I don't need to be looking at my guild chat right now. Oh yeah, the other map there is just the underworld where all the delves would be. Expect that. Sorry, what role? Seth, were you already, like, rolling to see what we might do in the game? Which would make sense then, because that's, that would mean the result you got was doing the treasure hunt twice, essentially. This game is Gems of War. I have played it multiple times throughout the history of my streams, and just... I've played it a lot in general since it first came out. It's like a match 3 type of game, just set in sort of like a fantasy world. Just, before I get into the, treasure hunt thing there, Seth, we'll see if this maybe, jogs any memories for people who haven't seen me play this in a little while, but, yeah, so, essentially, a lot of what happens is you've got your team with troops that have certain abilities and spells and stuff. You match the gems to give them mana to use their spells, and your goal is to try to defeat the enemy team using a mix of those spells, and like these skulls that appear are kind of your attack method. Yeah, I definitely can't say I remember you being in a stream where I was playing this for quite a while. I've at least recently kind of made a habit of playing this on stream about every month. Because right at the start of the month, there's a new Mythic, which is the highest rarity. There's a new Mythic troop that gets released. But there are only certain ways that you can get it. So I play a little extra of this game to get resources and stuff to try and get that new troop whenever it's released. And that, yeah, like every month there's a new troop like that. So anyway, I, however, based on Seth's role, I guess we'll be doing Treasure Hunt twice. So this one is kind of just the matching aspect of things, not so much the actual, like, war part. But, like, so you match stuff here. Obviously, if you match... Well, if you match 5 gems, you add an extra turn to your count kind of up near the top left there. Matching 4 of the coins or whatever holder of coins and treasure and stuff. If you match 4 of those, you just keep your same number of turns, and that's essentially like a free move. But yeah, matching 5 gives you another turn added to your count. Whereas if you only match 3, then the count goes down. And then whatever's left at the end of all the turns you take, you kind of get rewards from it based on what it says on the right-hand side of the screen. Yeah, it really is kind of more like you're merging these things to make bigger versions of them, kind of compiling it all together. Al says, I think you'd like Legends ZA. There's some plot, but it's slower paced. Before the matches, you could basically do what you want with the day leading up to the matches at night. So, now I'm curious because I don't think I saw it in the videos that I watched, which was only maybe a handful of them anyway. I don't think I remember seeing... Well, I was about to say I don't think I remember seeing gym battles, but there might have been something at least kind of equivalent. Because there were definitely certain characters that I think I saw it kind of set the player up to battle that were not just minor characters. Two moves can get you a red chest. Yeah, I mean, if I match this here, and then match the green chests down here at the bottom. However, I also want to preserve my turns. There's a 4 match up here that shouldn't really have much effect all the way down there. So, I just figured I'd do that first. Now I'll match these and get the red chest. Oh yeah, and then if you match 3 red chests, it makes what looks to me like a vault. Only thing is then, once you get a vault on the board, those cannot be moved, period. I mean, if you happen to match something underneath them, they can drop further down to the bottom of the board. But, yeah, otherwise, those things can't move. So then it limits you a little bit further. Anyway, there aren't gym battles exactly. It's more like, have I played... Colosseum. Yes, that was the one on the GameCube, or at least one of the ones on the GameCube with like the dark Pokemon, right? And you actually like kind of caught Pokemon from other trainers. But anyway, yes, I do believe I played Pokemon Colosseum. And, you know, that game seemed a bit short to me, but otherwise I liked it. Where there was the battle tower. At night, you have something called a battle zone. You battle all the trainers in it to collect points to earn a challenge ticket. Then you battle a ranked trainer. If you beat them, you go up a rank. Right, okay. Ranking seems to go from Z to A. Okay. Thus, part of the whole ZA name of the game, I guess. Yeah, I don't think we're getting another red chest quite yet, Seth, but it'll happen soon. Probably. Honestly, a lot of times if I don't have a 4 or 5 match somewhere specific, I tend to make my moves closer to the bottom of the board first. Because then it's a little more likely that things will cascade on down and make other better matches along the way. So even though the initial move would only give you, you know, a match of 3 and you'd lose a turn, other things that result from it could give you a 4 or 5 match, and then you don't lose the turn. Okay, free move there. I guess I'll go ahead and match that. Extra turn there, nice. Free move there, free move there. Bump this over. Nah, well, okay, let me do maybe another thing or two up here first. But then I can do this, make another red chest. Okay, 4 match there. That gets us right to a green chest. Hope they don't skip letters in the ranking. More battles, the better. I really do need to stop spending my days exploring and do some level grinding. Yeah.
Extra turn.
You know, being at a reasonable level is kind of important for those battles. Had a chance for a red there. Okay. Now to make a third one in good position. Yeah. Honestly, I don't necessarily, a lot of times, plan out the positions of the red chests or better like that. See, okay. Over here is not necessarily where I would want to make another red chest to match those up down here. But at the same time, I don't really know what else I might do to try and affect that situation. Or, hang on. I can make a red chest there and try to eventually do this whole thing vertically. Okay, extra turn there. I'm running a little bit low on moves. Okay, hang on real quick. Doing that first for the extra turn, but now... Vault! And I'm really kind of hoping I get at least a gem key or whatever out of that. Gem keys are also, I mean, really, both of the types of keys that can be gained from treasure hunts are also... They also open chests that could potentially get me the new Mythic tomorrow, so, This was not necessarily a bad choice in that regard. For, you know, new troop prep. Nice. Oh yeah, but also if you do a treasure hunt where you make more than 60 moves, it gives you some of the guild seals that can be used to open the guild chests that also give a chance at the Mythic troop. Okay, I definitely see the one red that you're thinking of. And then I guess the other one is probably going to come from matching that first and then doing this. Although maybe I could have just dropped that one down while doing this move. Oh well, hindsight. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna get through. I don't think I have enough moves to really set up another vault here.
Extra turn.
I made another red chest, though. And for what seems like it might be my last move, I think I'm just going to go ahead and match this here. That drops that down, and well, okay, extra turn. And another extra turn. Okay, we're not quite done yet. Seems like a decent enough move, especially because it sets that up. Okay, so we get that, and then we got this. Let me go ahead and do my free moves up here first. And then it seems like we might cap it off with making another vault. Yeah. Alright, boom. Ta-da! Alright, so I gained a bunch of gold and some souls and... Alright, you know what, let's just see what the overall rewards were. 8 glory keys, okay. Glory keys can also potentially give a mythic troop just at a lower rate than the gem keys or the guild seals. Alright, and one more time. Well, I think I accidentally went out of that. Okay, one more time. Alright, I'm not necessarily going to focus on making vaults this time around. I'm just gonna go with my general strategy of obviously do 4 or 5 matches. And in any other cases, focus on moves down low on the board. Try to set up the cascades and whatnot. And we shall see if things go notably better or worse when I do that. Of course, there's also a chance I just get a little bit better luck this time around. Okay, let me do this. Maybe some of that. I was hoping I was setting up a 4 match there. That didn't quite pan out how I hoped. Oh well. Extra turn. Man, imagine how broken this would be if, like, multiple 4 and 5 matches within the same turn compiled, rather than all just equaling 1. Okay, well, I do think I'm going to make a red chest before I make this move down here that drops those. There we go. Extra turn. But yeah, so like, when I make moves up higher on the board, fewer things fall down as a result of it. So it's less likely that anything... It's less likely that anything better develops when I make moves higher up on the board. There we go. Extra turn. Another extra turn. Although I will admit, I don't think I have as many turns left at this point as I had in the previous attempt. Owl's calling it a night. Alright, good night, Owl. Hopefully, we'll see you again soon, or at least hear from you again soon. Yeah. Take care of yourself. Okay. Got 12 moves left with 43 taken, of course. There is, all throughout those 12 moves, chances of getting more moves. Or just not losing a move when I match 4. So it's definitely not just going to be the number of moves that I have left. Getting a few 4 matches in a row. Of course, then the second I say that, it stops temporarily. This, yeah, I'm like, that should fall into at least a 4 match.
Extra turn.
Okay. See, red in 2 moves on the... So we thinking pretty much do the match that it's suggesting first. One, two, three. Yeah. Then bags and chest. Okay. Oh yeah. So then that. And then, yeah, that would get me another red chest.
Extra turn.
Okay. It would seem quite plausible, though, that I am not going to end up with a vault. I can definitely make another red chest down here, though. Okay. Yeah, sure, keep the extra turns coming. Always keep the extra turns coming. Never a bad thing. How? Oh. Okay, yeah. Gonna get that extra turn there first, and this free move. Okay. Now. Alright, so at least there's one vault from this one.
Extra turn.
Yeah, again, a lot of 4 matches in a row there. Maybe 2, but yeah. I would agree that a second vault seems a bit unlikely. But not entirely out of the question. Especially if some other extra turns pop up.
Extra turn.
Odds are I would have to kind of line something up in this column, though. Jeez. Yep, I have been up a while, that's for sure. Okay. Free move there, extra turn there. think I'll go for that move. Yeah, I don't really see a whole lot happening from whatever move I make here. Nope, okay. Alright. What did we get this time? Six glory keys. So yeah, reward's not quite as good, but still made it well over 60 turns. Alright. Dungeon. Okay. So yeah, this is the dungeon thing where we pick a door and see what's behind it, and 3 of them have battles, 2 of them have curses, 1 has something else, possibly a blessing of a sort. But if we beat all 3 of the battles before getting any curses, then there's an extra reward. These battles can be a little bit difficult. But I don't think yellow's usually that bad. Green tends to be one of the harder colors for this. For anyone potentially watching who has not seen this team set up, the basic idea is get a bunch of gold quickly with greed. That makes the Egg Thief's spell have a greater effect. So essentially you, especially by gaining a bunch of gold, end up just destroying everything on the board, giving all sorts of mana very quickly, especially to the skeleton key here, which gets a damage boost from gold. Oh, and then Cedric is here because you can gain more gold with him on your team. And then if the key here does enough damage to kill an enemy troop, then you get an extra turn. So that right now is going to deal 113 damage. That is not enough to knock off Topasarth right now. Probably pronounced more like Topasarth. Supposed to be a topaz dragon, essentially. By the way, there are now 3 sets of... Actually, 4, maybe? Sets of dragons, kind of like that. So there were the gem dragons to start off with. A while after that, they introduced, I think, cosmic dragons. Kind of similar, but I think those ones were... Basically just a slightly different spell effect. And honestly, a lot of the dragon sets are kind of like that. Man. Actually, I could, real quick, while we wait on the next die roll result, go to the forge and show you the different eggs and stuff. Oh, meanwhile, I should double check. Because I forgot that those troops, some of them rotate out on a, like, once or twice a week. Say gem dragons were the first type, then there were cosmic dragons, then floral dragons, and now they also have evil dragons that can all hatch from these eggs. But you need something called Dragonite to be able to hatch an egg. But then also having all the sets of dragons will give you particular weapons, or at least they'll allow you to craft particular weapons. And if you have those particular weapons, then you can make, like, sort of combined stronger dragon troops. I have not done anywhere near enough collecting Dragonite to get much of those, but Diamantina is the first one for the Gem Dragons. Stellaryx goes with the Cosmic Dragons. Chrysantherax was for the Floral Dragons. And I guess now there's also Pandemonia for the Evil Dragons. Anyway, back to the dungeon. Door number 3. Well, number 3 of the original 6, or 3 out of the 5. Right. Reading order skip. So now 3 out of the 5. So it would be this one down here at the bottom left. Is what I believe you mean by that. Okay. And that one's a trap. So now any other battles in this dungeon, my troops will start off being silenced. Okay. Silence, by the way, means they can't collect mana or use their spells. But there's a chance on each of my turns that that will go away. Not necessarily for all of my troops at once. But still. Okay. So now Greed's good to do his thing. Or its thing? Eh. Okay, now my weapon's good to go as well. But it's gonna be a lot harder to get the mana I need for that without the Egg Thief. Okay. Now I charge up the, well, with green I kind of gotta charge up Greed again first, before then getting to the Egg Thief. Yeah, another thing that's great about this team setup, well, for one, the Egg Thief can't be targeted. It's stealthy. She is stealthy. So it can't be targeted until all other non-stealthy troops are cleared. But also, not only does she destroy gems, she can spawn dragon eggs. Which puts another troop in the first spot, which means then my hero isn't taking all the skull damage. Or all the attack damage, you might say. Plus, then there's actually also a chance at the dragon eggs if there's some other empty slot. Summoning a baby dragon. And then the baby dragons can transform into any other dragon in the game. So essentially there's a lot of ability to keep adding new troops to your team. Oh my gosh, what the heck? My phone just literally triple vibrated right now. The other times that happened today was text messages in a certain group chat sort of thing. But that does not seem to be what was going on here. It seems like somebody shared my one Instagram video and then other people liked it because of that. Alright, well. 6 with 2 options would give us the second one. Okay. Now I realize that the last door would only possibly be beneficial and not a detriment. But we rolled this room first. So here we go, last battle of the dungeon. So now my troops are both silenced and cursed. Being cursed means that, well, they can potentially be inflicted by troops that would normally not have any status effects inflicted on them could possibly gain those status effects when cursed. And also, I think there's technically supposed to be a decreased chance of recovering from any current effects. I should have done that move first. That was silly of me to not notice that. Anyway. Yeah, I think the typical chance of recovering from a certain status ailment each turn goes down a bit while the troop in question is cursed. Not totally sure on that. I could look into it if people really must know. Of course, I would have to have my troops get cursed again. And or just look it up online. Okay, skeleton key. Extra turn, yeah. So, ads are going to start here pretty soon. I realize it has not quite been an hour of Gems of War. I could possibly keep going for a bit longer after the ads, but it's probably best for myself if I don't go a whole lot longer than that. Because, well, for one, I'm tired. And also, I should get a shower tonight, and there's just other things that I should probably do before I would go to sleep. But yeah, another 15 minutes, I guess, isn't a big deal after the ads. We just have to do something relatively on the quicker side. Maybe that would be a good time, actually, to focus on the Underspire. Can't expect that, at least, completely. Can't expect what, exactly? I'm like, keep in mind, there's a potential difference between the ads, or between stuff hitting the chat and me seeing it. So it's harder for me to tell what exactly it's in what exactly a chat comment is in response to. Not ascending the stairs, thank you. Okay. Ads are in progress on Twitch. Okay. Let me sit back up a bit here. Get myself a bit of water. Arena. Arena 3 times would take a while. I mean, I could definitely do the arena once at least, but arena 3 times? I think that would take more than 15 minutes. Especially because we gotta choose troops each time. Arena 3 battles. Oh, okay. Alright. So, this troop. 1, 6 would be that. 2 would be that. At least I think that's what it would have been. I'm not 100% sure now that the Exiled Wargear was actually the one I was supposed to pick, but oh well. We'll say this is what I end up with. I'm not in the mood to fuss up, because who knows if I'll get anything better. I mean, steal 2 armor from the last enemy and shift it to magic. 9 damage and eliminate 6 from a random skill. Or steal 5 attack, or silence. Destroy a column, explode 2 random gems. We'll see. I will swap the order around, though. Okay, Dementor just does that kind of thing. I think I'd rather put Gorthram before the Dementor. Okay. To battle.
Mana surge. Mana surge.
Oh yeah. Attack.
Mana surge. Mana surge.
Definitely don't want to just ignore attacks.
Mana surge.
Why not? Let's see what we get from you. Alright, stole 5 attack. That's...
Mana surge.
I mean, normally 5 attack wouldn't be that big a deal, but... considering the troop stats
Mana surge.
as they currently are.
Mana surge.
5 attack could actually make quite a difference. Okay. Explode 2 random gems for every yellow gem destroyed after I choose a column. Well, this one has 3 yellow gems. So, hiya. Oh, yeah. Okay. Now we'll do this.
Mana surge.
And okay, looks like there's a bunch of 2 yellow gem ties going on here. Oh, but maybe I should do this first. Okay, in that case the mana was drained, not the attack stolen.
Mana surge.
Now there's just one column that has 2 yellow gems. Yeah, that gives us an attack. Okay, cool. Didn't even lose any troops that battle. I was like 2 seconds away from accidentally saying that batch. Because, you know, battle and match combined. Anyway. Okay, extra turn there. Doesn't look like I'm getting any other extra turns. That's okay, I guess.
Mana surge. Mana surge.
Can't expect to get like 5 straight moves right off the bats
Mana surge.
all that often. I don't know if it was exactly 5 in a row in the first one, but it felt like at least 5. Looks like 2 yellow gems is the most in one column right now. Why did I do that? My team doesn't even use red. Ouch. And now there's all these skull matches coming in, and ugh. Anyway, you know what? Let's see what we get from you. Okay, mana drained. Yeah, this is looking less than stellar. Really? Doesn't help when it gives absolute terrible luck like that. Okay, well. So far, 1 win and 1 loss. I mean, there was definitely one wrong move that I made in there, I think. Or was it the first battle that had the one, like, extra turn move that I missed? I don't know. Jeez. There we go. Okay. I could have had another turn before doing that. Oh well. See, stuff like that happens when I do not necessarily think that hard about what I'm doing. I'm gonna go with this column. I realize there's not necessarily a huge difference between, you know, picking columns that have the same number of yellow gems. It's just the one had a skull in it. That was literally the only difference. And the only reason why I chose the one column that I did as opposed to another column that had the exact same number of yellow gems in it. And once again, it's a tie at 2 gems. We'll do this one that's got the skulls. Let me... Ooh, silenced. Okay. 3 yellow gems here. Okay, now we got 2 terrified enemies, one of which has been silenced. But now they just, like, keep trading places, because the whole thing about terror is that it's supposed to, like, work a troop all the way down to the bottom, and if it triggers while they're in the bottom spot, that enemy troop flees. Okay. And there's another win. Yeah, given the overall timing of things, I think I might just finish out this arena run and then call it a night. I guess I'll do this to start.
Mana surge. Mana surge.
Oh yeah, definitely want to do that. Ooh, yeah, really, really wanted to do that. Would have missed out on a lot of good stuff if I didn't do that. Okay, you lose your mana. You. Okay. I'm gonna make 6 from a random skill. I bet you it randomly selected armor. Because nothing really appeared to actually happen, and its armor was already gone, so that's what I'm guessing happened right there. I don't think it was magic. And it definitely wasn't life or attack.
Mana surge. Mana surge.
Yeah, let's go with this column.
Mana surge. Mana surge.
Ooh.
Mana surge. Mana surge.
Oh, man. So I realize I'm not entirely wrapping things up just yet, but we're getting there kind of soon. Feels like it doesn't hurt to mention this already. Not next week, but the week after that. I'll be, running a bit of a different schedule. Took a couple of vacation days. I'm gonna go on a fairly short trip. Well, fairly short time-wise, as in it's, like, not even gonna be a week. So, the week of the 16th. All of my usual recording stuff I am going to pack into that Wednesday, the 18th. That includes Bible study and whatever game playthrough falls on that week, which I think, so next week would be Borderlands. I guess that would be another Kingdom Hearts week. So, yeah, it'll be that on Wednesday, because I took off Wednesday to be able to do that. I took off Thursday for the actual, like, trip. I'll be driving bit south down to North Carolina to visit somebody who I've never actually met in person, but I would like to think I know fairly well. Bit of a YouTube channel collab partner over on over on a channel called Same Spirit Gaming. If you're not familiar with it, you should check it out. It's got some similar stuff to what I do in a way, except it feels a little more podcasty because it's always me and Jordan at least. So yeah, I'm gonna go visit Jordan. He's in North Carolina. So yeah, Wednesday's gonna be a stream day where I record all of my usual stuff and hopefully get a bunch of editing done too. And then Thursday through Saturday is essentially going to be that trip. Yeah, as far as what time on Wednesday, I'm not 100% sure yet. I think I might kind of do it in the early afternoon like I would on a Friday. Although, depends on the situation with, like, because that would be a weird time for me to get groceries for the following week. Especially certain groceries that, you know, like fresh fruit. There's a chance that would go bad before I would even use it in that case. So yeah, next week is going to be normal. But the week after that, the week of the 16th, I'm just streaming on Wednesday for 3 hours of recording things. Okay. This is looking like I may very well might lose this match. Anyway, Seth, what's your idea for next week? About a Saturday stream. I mean, maybe. I'm not gonna say that it's out of the question. I just usually prefer to do. I usually prefer to do my live streams a little bit earlier in the sort of weekend. Oh, is that Valentine's Day? It's not like I'd be doing anything Valentine's Day themed, though. Like a 3-stream weekend? It's just Saturday usually ends up being my primary video editing day. So, adding a third stream in there where I'm taking time away from my editing that I'm already having enough trouble keeping up with. I mean, you could tell me the reason. That doesn't mean it's going to change my mind on the subject. I mean, I'm sure in my case, rather than being a Valentine's Day stream, it would be more like a, as some people like to call it, a Singles Awareness Day. Oh, it's your birthday. That's thus the request for a stream on that day. Okay. So I would possibly consider doing a Saturday stream instead of Friday. Because then, like, that wouldn't so much affect the flow of the editing situation. Recordings is the one thing of that. I'm like, what do you mean one thing? Like... You asking me to do extra recordings that week? Random game picked on day of. Recordings expected finished beforehand. Yeah, so, like, I don't understand what you're thinking relative to what I would... So again, this would be something just... What you're thinking of is something purely in addition to my normal streams and recordings for the week. Next week. I mean, that's what it seems to me like you're describing. Recording Bible Study Thursday, plus... Why Friday and or part of Thursday play. I'm still not sure what you're suggesting as, like, the total outlook for the week and all that kind of stuff. It's, again, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or dependent on recording placement. Like, in any case, like, and this is this is no disrespect to you, Seth. I realize that we're talking about your birthday here, but, like, I don't necessarily want to spend a whole bunch. I don't want to spend extra time on streaming that would tear away from my editing that I'm already kind of like barely keeping up with. Plus, whatever. Yeah, so what you're suggesting in any way that you do not lose editing if second one. Yeah, well, then the stream with the Bible study and the recording would have to be a combined 3 hours. So, really, best case scenario there is I, for 1 week, revert to a 3-hour Thursday evening stream. Which means either I just wake up on... I maybe wake up a little later on Friday or lose a little bit of sleep there. But yeah, so just combine planning that. Yes, but that's putting it more in a situation like a Friday, not on a Thursday evening after I've already had a full day of work. But maybe I could make a 1 week exception. But in any case, the overall amount of time spent streaming would still likely be a bit more than I normally do. And that's how it would maybe still slightly be taking time away from the editing. I mean, unless the Saturday thing was only 1 hour, but 1 hour barely even feels worth streaming. It's without any other extenuating circumstances. But anyway, but I still typically do some. I'm trying to think, because Friday's also the typical collab channel recording session. Just that happens in the late morning instead of early afternoon. But yeah, again, like overall, unless I only streamed 1 hour on that Saturday, that would still kind of add to the overall streaming time total for that week. And that's how it would arguably still maybe take away from some of the editing. Again, maybe only like an hour or two, but it's still some time. And to be honest, I have like barely been keeping up with my normal release schedule as I've been editing lately. Anyway. Yeah, but I also don't... I'm not a big fan of making, last-minute decisions when it feels like there's a bunch of pressure. Those kind of situations are when it is a bit more likely that I either get annoyed with a particular situation and or usually end up kind of caving in to whatever somebody's asking of me when I normally wouldn't like to. Anyway. But, okay, it's a possible thought. We can maybe discuss this. Or, anyway, there's potential follow-up that can happen either in tomorrow's stream or in other ways and places and times and things like that. Anyway, okay. And really the only reason I am considering this is because of how loyally you have watched the streams, Seth. Like if you were an inconsistent 30 stream streak. If you were an inconsistent viewer, I would be like, yeah, I like you, but sorry, I'm not going to change my schedule for your birthday. In any case, so yeah, I should figure out a raid target. Meanwhile, all right. So tomorrow is unchanged. Still early afternoon. I'm going to be doing Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC limit cut data battles. Trying to get through some more of those. Heh. Okay. Purely because of the conversation we had earlier, I'm considering rating somebody who's currently playing Pokemon Legends CA. Yeah, sure, why not? So yeah, tomorrow, Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC battles. Next week will be Bible study in, that's Esther, not Ezra, but yeah. Esther, chapters 1 and 2. Game is Borderlands 4. The exact timing of the Borderlands 4 recording is to be determined and currently a little bit up for debate. But otherwise, yeah. That's that Bible study, Esther 1 and 2, and then Borderlands 4 gameplay. Those are the planned recordings for next week. And then I might hop in for a bit on Saturday and give a, happy birthday greeting stream for Seth here. All right. And then, yeah, the 18th is going to be all of my recording on that Wednesday. So that's the plan for upcoming streams in upcoming weeks. I have the raid at the ready. So that's going to do it for me. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I will see you soon for another stream. Feel free to check out the edited YouTube content in the meantime. But whatever ends up happening, until the next time I see y'all, stay cool, everybody.